Hi, this is Ariel with Homeschool Together, and welcome to the sixth video in our Beginner Trello series. Today we're talking about copying and moving cards, lists, and boards. So let's start at the very top with boards. So for a board, if you want to copy, let's say you make a template board and it has what your child is going to do every week. Every week they're going to do math on Mondays and reading on Tuesdays and geography on Wednesdays, right? Whatever it is. You could create that as a template board, and then you could copy it and input the individual information for this week, let's say, and you could, make several weeks ahead. I see a lot of parents do that. So here you're going to go over to Show Menu and down to More and Copy Board. You type in a title and you hit Create. And that's it. Now notice here that you have the option to keep the cards on the board or not, and something called template cards. And we'll go into templates in an advanced video. But for now, just know that you have the ability to either keep your cards or not. Usually there's no good reason to copy a board if you're not going to keep your cards, but you can still keep your lists. Maybe that's enough for you, but usually I want to keep everything that's on the board. So one of the things I'll do is I can change which workspace this is in. Right now I only have one workspace, but I could have several. You could organize this any way you want, and you can change where that board is going to reside. So you'll type in a name and hit create. So that's how you copy a board. Going to the next level down, we have lists. So to copy and move lists, this is a list here. We would go up to the three dots and we would hit copy. We type in a new name. Let's say we want it to be mountains. Create, and there it is, and it's populated with all of my cards. So that's the only way to copy lists. You cannot copy a list to a new board or a different board. So that's very important to note. There's no option to copy this list somewhere else. You can move a list, you can't copy it. So if you want to copy, and then if you want to take a copy and put it on another board, you have to do it in this sequence first. You have to make a copy, and then you have to choose to move it. And when you move it, you select what board you want it to go on and what position. Position of a list is from the left to the right. So this is position 1, 2, 3 on this board. So I'm going to put it in position 2 on my reading board. It's gone. I go over to my reading board. Here it is in position 2. So if you want to copy a list over to a different board, you have to do that. You have to copy it onto the same board first and then move it. That's very unfortunate, but that's the way that Trello works. You have to do that 2-step process if you want to copy a list to another board. If you want to move a list, as I showed, you can move the list to another board. You can also move it within the same board and just change the position. Or you can do the easier method and just drag and drop. So on the same board, I always drag and drop. If I want to go over to a different board, then I have to do the copy and then the move functions. So that's for lists. For cards, we can copy cards and move cards in a couple of ways. You can go into the card here and select the move button or the copy button, or you can select it via the pencil here and you'll get move or copy. The options that you get are exactly the same. It doesn't matter which way you access these functions. So first, let's talk about moving. So moving cards, you can drag and drop into another list, into the same list. This is the easiest way to manipulate cards over. You cannot, as you see, I don't have a list over here. I can't drag and make another list. I have to make a list first. And then I could go ahead and drag it in. So just important to note, won't spawn a new list that way. So that's one way to move within the same board. I could definitely choose to go here and, move it to another location. You see it's suggested, oh, do you want to move it over to the rivers? Because I just moved it back from there. So that's why it's thinking, maybe you want to go back. So that's making a suggestion here. But I can select a different board. So I can say, yeah, I want to put this on the reading board, and I want to put it in my mountains list, and I want to put it in position 2. Boom. So positions in lists go 1, 2, 3 from left to right. Positions within a list, 1, 2, 3 from the top down. So that's how you would select exactly where you want to go. So if we go over here to mountains, there it is. So I can go ahead and move it back to where I got it from, position 1 on my board. So that's the nice thing about cards. When you copy them, you can actually copy them over. You can move them to another list, and you can also copy them to that list too and select exactly where you want them to go. So unlike lists, you're able to say, oh yeah, I want to make a copy of this. And I want to put it over here. I don't want to lose my original. I wish this option existed for lists, but it doesn't. So one thing to note about copying cards. We talked in the last video about labels, and if you want to see all about that, go back to lesson 5. But for labels, they are board specific. So on this board, this bright green color is the label for mountains. And these labels are all changeable, of course. This label is not available on another board. So if I go over, hang on a second, let me archive this. So if I go here, oh, see, it's available because I was here. So if that card had not been here, that label would not have been available. So that's the one way that you can transfer labels. So if I'm here and I've got special labels that I set up here, they're only available in the board that I started them in. And they'll be available to all the cards in this board. If I want to take those labels and uniformly, I want blue to be math and I want it to be math across all my boards, the best way to do it is to take a card like this one that has a label selected and copy it over to the other board, because you end up copying the labels. And you even notice that Trello clues you into that. When you say copy, it actually says, do you want to keep the labels? So if you do that, then you give a whole nomenclature of labels over to another board, which is important. One thing to note about this, if I had this card and I have this label for this board, but it's not checked on this card, and I copy this card over, it actually won't take all the labels with it. So it only takes the labels that are checked. But once you do that, then every other board in that, so this one obviously has this label because it's checked, but if I go over to another one and I look at labels, it has it checked as well. And it's only because that card is here. So that's a way that you can get labels to hop from one board to another board, is by copying a card that contains those labels. So that's how to copy boards, how to copy and move lists and cards. I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions about this, if anything was confusing, please leave a comment down and we'll get to it just as soon as we can. If you want to know more about how we use Trello for our homeschool, we have a terrific podcast episode. Go ahead and check that out. It's also in the show notes, and I appreciate your time today. Thanks.